Look at that for a nudge. Was that a no look?
Hi, everybody, and welcome to SA Rugby Magazine. I am Kevin Ferguson, and I've got Scott Gibbs in a car in Wales, and we're going to discuss the Sunday game, Boks versus Scotland. Scotty, what are your thoughts on that? We haven't seen, there's no team being announced. I think there's a bit of gamesmanship with the coaches. Greg Townsend, somebody that Rassie truly respects, no doubt. Good rugby brain. But it would have been great to talk about a team that had been announced, but that's only happening later today at 4:00. So let's have at it and see what we can come up with.
Well, I think it's an important 3-game stretch for South Africa to continue the momentum built from the Irish test this winter in South Africa, and also the Rugby Championship. There's plenty at stake still, nothing to lose. Will it surprise us if his selection throws up a few anomalies? No, especially that I guess the England game he will be focusing more on. Given that kind of rivalry. With all that said, though, we're talking about a Scotland team that's got game, that can play. There's very little weakness in that Scotland side. Added by the fact that Finn Russell returns from injury this weekend makes it even more exciting.
Yeah.
So and let's go back to the URC final and the Glasgow Warriors against the Bulls. I mean, so they surely won't be fearing the fact that the Springboks are in town. It's about getting their game right. And if they can do that, then potentially there's an upset. Ooh.
Yeah, look, I'll make this point, but is that the last time that Scotland beat South Africa, I was still a virgin.
Well, that's it. Scotland have had some key victories over the last couple of years, because this side under Greg Townsend has grown and developed, and it's kind of long in the tooth now, contextually with some of the players. So this is probably the last stretch that he has with this group of players. So they've been able to, have a series of back-to-back wins against England. They put Ireland under pressure on few occasions. But when it comes to the big guns,
Wales, almost on every.
When it comes to the big guns, you kind of look at it like a pumped up middleweight against a true heavyweight. And that's, this is what this weekend is about, because if there's any apathy with the Springboks on Saturday, then they kind of, they can have to look at themselves, because they could quickly get embarrassed and go down a few tries, because, as I said, this Scotland side can play, and they want to play. The fact is that have they got the mongrel, have they got the minerals to outsmart, outwit the Springboks? Because that they can't outbattle them when it comes to the physicality and the aggression.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's the front row. I would. Who would you like to see in the front row, Scott, for South Africa?
Well, I think they have a couple of key injuries, isn't they? I'm reading that Mal Herber's not available, and
obviously,
and Auction say
Ox is available, from what I understand.
I think there's been so much continuity, in the fact is that Rassie has, probably nine very, very capable international quality front rowers. But it's about the complement, it's about the work rate and the sharing of the work rate. That is the key. So, and I think, Rassie's been very good. If there's any doubt, there's no doubt, because if there's a niggle with a loose head or the tight head or a hooker, then he just doesn't start it. It's not worth taking the risk. That the second rows will bolster that attack, and the back row balance is always key. So I guess, it's strange, given that, there's been continuity in his selection, and the timings of the announcements and so on, I just don't see why is this brinksmanship, or is this something a little bit more trivial in the context that they have a few players that are banged up and they're giving them every time to prove their fitness, and then we will make the decision. Because ultimately, Kevin, ultimately, and this is it, if you make a decision on a Friday and the test matches is within 48 hours, is that you would have hoped that you'd have had 4 or 5 days of preparatory time with, the selected 23. So they've had some run out, they've had some reps, they kind of get the scheme together and so on and so forth. And I know that's second nature to the All Blacks, to the Springboks, because they know what type of style they need to play and a level they need to play at. Because you can't just certainly go, okay, yeah, we've got a few injured players and we haven't had much prep time, and suddenly this is a team and they've kind of just got to put it together, knit it together on Sunday, because Scotland will be fully prepared. They will understand all of the nuances that they will come up against on Sunday. So it's hard to interpret.
My worry, Scott, is how much, because we definitely see, the South Africans definitely see England as a more difficult hunting ground. So how much of this team will be in preparation for what they perceive to be a bigger test at Twickenham next week? And when I look at Scotland, my problem with Scotland is that in the last, they've won 5 in a row, and fantastic. But then when you break that down, who did they beat? Fiji, Uruguay, Chile, USA, and Canada. Not exactly.
Well, again,
exactly.
These are sparring partners, really.
Yeah.
And you're going up against Joe Lewis, isn't it? You're going up against the world champion. So, I have no doubt that even if even when the Boks side is announced and there's obviously not new names to us, but
No.
familiar enough names to go, okay, I get it. They start at, they got Marnie at 10, or they got Esteisen at 12, or the back row is slightly different, and there's a bit of rejigging in the second row and the front row. We still know that they're good enough. They just need to be focused and drilled in and dialed in on Sunday, because Murrayfield is a great track to play on, probably one of the best tracks to play football on.
How so, Scott?
And well, just because it's one historic, and I say historic, that field, that pitch, that the grass there, it's been there for decades, and it's just a great fast track to play football on. The only thing, if you haven't played at Murrayfield and you haven't recognized, one of the challenges in Murrayfield is that the because of the way that the stadium is engineered, there's a very low wind. So when it comes to box kicking, that wind kind of keeps that ball up in the air and sways around. And I played maybe a dozen times up in Murrayfield, and one of the key aspects from a kicking point of view is that when you are going to spiral, or you're kicking for field position, or you're kind of doing a wipers kick, you need to keep that ball low, like a low drive,
Yeah.
So I mean, these are just tiny little elements of your overall game that you need to be aware of. And certainly if there's more of a wind on Saturday, then, that Scotland will have a distinct advantage, because they'll know every inch of that stadium when it comes to
there is
how we can sweat it,
Yeah, and there is forecast a 16 to 20 kilometer an hour wind in Edinburgh on Sunday at that time. So okay. So that could be problematic. The betting on this, Scott, is that if you want to bet on the Springboks, 3 to 10, so 30% return on your money. They are 8.5-point favorites at almost even money. How would you play that if you were? I know you're not a betting man, other than betting on yourself all your life.
Yeah, I take the even money bet. I think it's money in the bank, isn't it?
Or for
It
South
really
Africa?
is.
For South
Yeah,
Africa?
I say the caveat is that as we know with Murrayfield, it's got a very, very deep in-ball area. So, Finn Russell with those little bird balls that I talk about on the worm balls, certainly with Duan van der Merwe, as well, being a physical statures that, the kicking game, even from an attacking red zone perspective, could be crucial in the outcome. Because, like I say, they're so comfortable at understanding how Murrayfield as an asset can help them perform.
Well, the last time these teams played, it was a pretty low-scoring match, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just check.
Well, while you check, Kev, I've seen 2 or 3 doozies in Murrayfield. One, I think 2 out of the 3 because the weather has been horrendous. It's been coming in sideways. There's, the ball's been slippery, and it negates both sides' ability to contribute to an overall performance. And then the other one was just the All Blacks, the Springboks, kind of didn't look like they wanted to be there, So that's always the biggest hurdle late in the season, is getting guys up for it. And you and I both know that that's never been an excuse for the Springboks. But it's not an easy place to go. You still got to put the graft in. You still got to look around and go, right, share the workload. But the onus, I think, will be on the decision makers, 9 and 10, whoever Rassie picks, is that don't be too confident in trying to put on a show. Just stick to the basics. Use the field. Use the elements to your advantage and get into the red zone and then put the screw on.
Yeah, look, I agree, Scott. I think that if the Boks, I think they'll dominate in the forwards. I don't know what combinations they're going to play in the backs, but they've got such a depth of talent. And again, there's no doubt that the 8 on the bench, however they split those, are also going to be impressive. So I don't see any other result than a Boks by 10, as Mark and Zell's is their common theme in their podcasts. I do like the Boks by 10 or more. Probably around 15 if I was to be more accurate. Not much rain to be played there, but you just never know. If it's a funny shaped ball, and that crowd, passionate crowd, if things don't go right for the Boks, then it could be interesting. But I don't believe that they can cover the 8.5. I think the Boks will win by more than that. I don't think Scotland will, with 8.5 on the board, will over handicap the South Africans. And I see nothing but a 30-15, 24-10 type game for the Springboks, who will be clinical.
Well, that's right. I think if there's a focused, clinical attitude towards the game, the Boks are easy winners. The anomaly is, as you said, the odd-shaped ball and this person called Finn Russell, because yes, he can win it for Scotland, but he can also cost it for Scotland. But the fact is that he's in a rich frame of form at the moment. And sometimes you could argue, because when I watch him, he's unplayable. And the fact is that Scotland midfield, incredibly creative, robust, Tupeluto and Hugh Jones, they have weapons, they have threats across the park. But the fact is, I just don't think that they'll have the ability to absorb the bludgeoning Springboks on Sunday.
So, Scotty, thanks very much for your input. Always appreciated on SA Rugby Magazine. And we both agree there's 2 green waves coming this weekend. One is Irish and one is the Boks. We've got both teams to win by double digits or more. And best of luck with any of the bets that you guys are making out there. Or just if you're a fan, I hope your team does well. And have a great weekend. Thanks very much.
How about it for